It's time to dad.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Time to Dad. This is special episode 3. Thank you guys for hanging out. I know we've told you we're gonna try and bring you some more what the hell is the word I'm looking for? Some more focused content, I guess. And so, that started off with the substance abuse episode, which was episode 1. Episode 2 was kind of surrounding special education, which was also an awesome episode. If you didn't catch either of those, you can check them out on YouTube. But today, we wanted to discuss something that is I think always in the forefront of most dads' minds is finances and what the hell is it all about? We are fortunate enough to have Joe here, who specializes in that area of work. And so, rather than bring in somebody outside of the group, we figure why the hell not, bounce this stuff off Joe and utilize a resource we have at hand. So, Joe, I think everybody watching or listening probably knows a little bit about your life and who you are, but I don't think everybody necessarily knows what you do for a living and what kind of support you can provide. If you want to give a quick kind of high level overview bio of kind of your career history and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So, most people I know work in finance, but there's different lines of finance. So I handle more personal finance, the families, small business owners, that type of thing. Here in New York, I do a lot of union. There's a lot of unions here in Long Island, so I deal with a lot of unions. Teaching people about their pensions, anything related to personal finances for really the family. I literally do almost really kind of a little bit of everything when it comes to like actually companies that we work with and partner with. But overall, it's kind of putting together a financial plan for families, kind of reviewing what they got going on, what they don't got going on, helping them with a budget, debt management, insurances, investing for themselves, retirement, their kids, goals, investment goals for, maybe it's buying houses, maybe it's buying RVs, maybe it's, moving out of the country, any type of investment that they're kind of looking for that aspect. I've been doing it for, it's going to be 9 years actually next month, which is pretty crazy to think. I am getting old. I guess you could say, right? That I've been in it that long. Right? I'm getting the white hairs in the beard.
Join the club, man. Join the club.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's a myth, but if you pluck them, more come. Anybody know if that's fact or fiction?
Fiction.
I don't know.
Biologic fiction, mental fact. If you
Fairy
believe
dust, he likes
if
to
you
call
believe it, much like everything else we're going to talk about in this episode, if you believe it, it's true.
So,
Jason's only here because he's strongly opposed to the belief that money is real.
Yes, that's very true. We'll have that conversation in 30 years.
I think it's real. It's something. It's there.
So sweet. So yeah, so that's why we decided to go with Joe, because we already had the resource in house. We already have the chemistry between the group. So why the hell not have the expert be somebody that we're you guys have already met and that we talk with on a weekly basis on these episodes. So let's get the big one out of the way. I think first is what are some top mistakes? This is a dad podcast, right? So I'm going to speak in dad terms. But what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see dads making when it comes to their finances or investments? If you had to pick two.
I mean, I think the simplest one is just not understanding it or taking the time to learn a little bit about it. It's really not difficult finance. the one thing I always teach all my clients is they make things difficult so people don't understand it. But if you do simplify things, it is a simple concept, right? Like money grows. It's just a matter of where it is and where you put it, right, Jason?
I'm watching
Sometimes
Jason's reaction.
Sometimes it grows on trees. Sometimes you get it from a giant, and you can climb into a castle.
Machine spits it out.
A rainbow pot of gold.
Sometimes you just dig for it. Sometimes you dig for it in the mountains of California, and you ride a fucking horse over there. It's just fucking math.
That's it.
Money is what you make it. I think is what I'm hearing.
But I don't know. I think the biggest mistake is just not planning, right? I mean, it's like if you don't take the time to plan it or understand it, it's like a game. Let's call it a game, and you can't win a game if you don't know the rules. So I really think the first step is just understanding how money works. And people can make a lot of money. I have clients that make a lot of money, and they're broker than a person that makes no money. Because they don't know how to save. They don't take the time to, they don't, sometimes I'll give clients of mine homework and I make them keep receipts for like 2 months just to track what they're actually spending. Right. And they're like, it's like you're telling like a 45-year-old man, husband and wife to do homework. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? But then you come back 2 months later and they're like, holy crap, I spent $1,300 on takeout food. Right, this month, right, and they don't realize that, and that can be used elsewhere. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes. And then I think if you're married, having a common goal with your spouse, I think is a huge, huge, huge mistake, because you can be great at it, your spouse can be terrible at it. And
you mean so if you don't have a common goal, that's the mistake, right? Okay.
Yeah, or at least
I was like, wait, I thought you wanted a goal. I follow you now. Okay.
No, no. You want to have a common goal, or at least understand each other's goals of why you're doing what you're doing. Hey, why am I choosing to save here or spend here? So you're on the same page. Because if you're not, you're just gonna get mad at the other person, right? Sometimes you hear people getting married. Oh, I got married. They didn't know the debt that the person had, and now that debt is your debt, right? You hear stuff like that. Yep. Right. So, on which end?
Hers.
Okay.
It's not horrible. I knew she had some debt from getting her her photography certification and all that, but when I saw the real number, I was kind of like, holy shit. I mean, luckily that's still like, we deal with it when taxes come around, right? Because she owes money on it. So, and it's a federal loan. So they're always wanting to just seize our tax return to put it towards it. But luckily I'm able to file as an injured spouse after that, and we can get the return back, but it's a pain in the ass. But I knew she had some debt, and yeah, I see why you make that point. That's kind of a weird thing to ask if you think about it, where you're like, hey, like what kind of financial shit am I going to be in after we get married? But I mean, I wouldn't say I learned the hard way, because it's not significant, but I'm sure there are people out there who may be marrying someone that have considerable debt that they're unaware of. So I can see, I totally understand what you're saying there.
Yeah. It comes I mean, most marriages are, I think, what is it? Like 90% of marriages are end in divorce due to finances.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a high number. So if you're on the same page, or at least if they're good, that can save a lot of marriages.
Yeah.
I'd say my own biggest mistake was procrastinating. I shouldn't have procrastinated and trying to get something going earlier in life. Now, while I'd, only been married for the past, going on 4 years to my wife, and, we had Jasper relatively late in life. I'd say my biggest mistake was thinking I could just do it, just pick up and start saving anytime. And now I'm realizing how much harder it is, now that I'm in, in the situation that I'm in. I mean, I got a kid, got, plenty of other expenses, saving money, it's great and all, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah. No, it is. I had that same conversation with a young client of mine today. He's 22, and his mom, made him start putting money away when he was 18. He started working it. Now he's making a little bit better money, so he wants to start, beefing up his IRAs a little bit. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, Doug, I'm going to tell you right now, like, put it away now if you can. You're living at home. Things are not going to get cheaper. It's only going to get more expensive. And I know you think things are tight now, but wait until you're a dad, right? You got kids trying to get a house. I know it sounds like you don't have money, but Domino's could wait on Friday night when you're 21, 22 years old.
Come on, man. Can't wait on Domino's.
So, definitely, but that comes down to the planning, JT, and that's why, I think that's, starting and kind of sitting down and reviewing that stuff and just understanding it and taking time to understand it is one of the biggest mistakes that I see.
Yeah.
So when, let's see here. At what age would you say it's a good age to reach out to someone like yourself? Is it like all ages from the time you enter the workforce, or?
I mean, the younger the better, right? Because money is interesting, right? So this is a simple rule of money.
Is it, Jason?
Right? You could go. Okay.
I'm someone just like you, Joe. I believe in dreaming with your eyes, and just believing in something. Try whatever it is. Maybe it's something that's total like a total fairy tale like money. But that's why I wanted to be on this episode, listen to you talk about this, like, because you believe in it, man.
You're gonna change his whole outlook on life, Joe, on this one episode.
No.
Jason's like, damn, I gotta wise up.
I joke. I have my own real questions for Joe. I'm just messing with Joe. It's just, but there's a lot of things. I hope we get to a roundtable section of this where we can all just actually ask real, like Joe, what do I do in this spot, that spot? Like, everything's, what you do is so important, and it's a skill that they don't teach you in school, and it's I joke that it's fake because, I have like my own fears of hyperinflation in ancient Rome and all these. Like, I get that money. I know it's not fake. I know that it's a thing. If anyone at home was confused, but yeah, no, go on, Joe. I'm just fucking around.
But so this is a simple rule of money. It's something that you can Google. Right, but we're not even taught what to Google. Right, you just said, Jason, we're not taught this stuff in school. We're taught earth science and all these classes and everything about nothing that we utilize really as much, unless you're in that specific field. But we're taught nothing about money, and we use it every day. Right. So one thing I always teach is, right, there's something called the rule of 72, and all it is a rule that teaches us how long it takes for our money to double on average based off the interest rate that we get on our money. So where you put money, you get interest rates, right? Now, if it's sitting under your mattress, you're going to get 0%.
Zero interest.
Right?
0%
APR. There you go. Yeah. Right? If you put money, let's say you're in a bank account, and that bank account's giving you 1%. Well, 1% divided into 72 is 72. So that means on average, it would take 72 years for your money to double in that account.
Oof.
So if you have $1,000, it would take 72 years for your money to double, which
So
obviously
the basic savings account is not where I should keep my nest egg, is what I'm hearing.
It's not for retirement, correct? Right now, right? 3% is like a CD. Maybe a money market. Now, it's going to fluctuate, right? CDs the last few years have been 4.85. Maybe we saw a few of them. But over time, they're around 3%, right? It depends on kind of what's going on in the country. 3% of 72 is 24. Means your money would double on average in 24 years. You get 6%. 6 divided into 72 is 12. Your money doubles on average 12 years. You get 9%. Doubles every 8 years. So simple, right? What do we all want? Higher interest.
Yeah.
the more doubling periods you have in your life, the more money you'll have. Now, it's not going to grow if it's in a guaranteed investment. It's going to grow every single time. Investments like stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, right, crypto, right, all these things out there now, those are not guaranteed. You can now go back on history and stuff like that, but you can never guarantee anything. So a lot of times that's where it comes down to people and, hey, what should I invest in? What's my, and that kind of comes down to the person's goal, their age, what it's for, right? And that's kind of where you dictate, hey, well, I want to get around 6% because I'm retiring in 5 years. Hey, I'm young, I'm in my 30s, I got time, I'm not retiring until I'm 60. Well, then that's where we want to shoot for the higher interest rate, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Mutual funds, stocks, ETFs, index funds, those type of things. Right now I want to be aggressive. Why? I'm 35. I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. Can't touch my retirement money until I'm 59 and a half anyway, right? So I'm going to be aggressive because if the market goes down today, I give a crap. I want to come
That's
back
what I
up.
was going to ask. So like we're switching who our 401ks through my company's acquisition. But we were with Transamerica and that was, there's like 3 tiers you can select for your managed account, right? And me just Googling, like you said, it was my understanding that it's at my age, it's you want to be as aggressive as you can with the portfolio. Is that fairly accurate? And then as you get older, it sounds like you want to swing towards the more secured investment side where you're not going to see the huge dips if the stock market tanks or does something weird.
Yeah, logically, yes. But then when it comes down, it's emotional, right? Money's emotional. I always tell people, right?
Yeah.
If you can stomach the down,
I don't look at it, man.
yeah, then what I say, like and this is what I'll look at, right? Like let's say, right, all 3 of you guys have a hat on. If you knew you were going into that store to buy that hat tomorrow, like you knew you were going to get, no matter what, you went there to go to the store to get that hat. And all of a sudden you go in and the store said, hey, 40% off. Would you run out of the store and not buy the hat? Or would you be like, hell yeah, I got a freaking deal?
Yeah, maybe I should buy 2 in case I lose my hat.
Exactly. If you invest on a monthly basis and when the market goes down, you're buying the same thing you were going to buy anyway. You're just buying it at a lower when it goes down 20%, 10%. So you're just buying it at a lower time. So when the value goes back up, now you made money. And when the value back up, depending on the type of fund, let's say it is, well, if it's a company and they're giving dividends, right, or capital gains, if it's like in a fund where somebody's managing it, well, you can make money just by sitting there and holding it, right? But you're buying it at a discount when it goes down. So I always tell my clients, like, people ask me, when things go down, like was 2022, it was a pretty bad year. Did clients call you freaking out, pulling out money? I said, I didn't have one client call me freak out and take out money. The reason why is because all my young investors, I taught them, hey, when the market goes down, that's when you want to put more money in.
Yeah.
Because you already buy it anyway. So now you're just getting a discount. Now, my older clients, if they're like 5 years away from retirement, we've already moved them into more conservative things.
If we're speaking of your investment on the stock market side, if you start pulling it out because it's tanking, you're basically solidifying the fact that you were never going to make a return on that investment if you're selling it when it's tanking, right? But if you leave it, you're gonna see that your value trend down, but there still is the very strong possibility that it will rebound higher than it was, and you didn't lose anything at all.
Yeah. Well, because when you're investing, right? Let's just use Apple. Apple's huge, right? If you're buying Apple stock, or if you're buying a mutual fund or an ETF that has Apple stock in it, I'll go back to that first, and I'll explain the difference of like a stock, because everybody kind of knows stocks, but they're not familiar with like what index funds or mutual funds or ETFs are. I always compare it to an elevator, right? Because everybody knows what an elevator is, right? Think of
explain for.
Does it have a recall system, and do they need testing? Because I could set them up with a 5-year deal. That can prevent a 3% year over year
He's
increase.
got some fire alarm input for you.
Does it have elevator recall or not? That's all I need to know.
it has some SIPC insurance in case it goes down. So you're good. I think that's considered a recall in your world.
No total recall. You can recall it to the closest floor.
Elevator recall is very important. If there's a fire on a floor, you don't want that elevator to go through the fire. You want it to stop, go back up. That's elevator recall. It's a very important safety feature in every elevator. If you're, it's a high rise. If you're smart.
Well, Joe's going to tell us about the elevator feature.
Well, you don't want to go through that fire. You gotta figure it the fuck out.
How do you know where the fire?
The smoke alarm.
Detector.
Yeah, the smoke detector. So if a floor's on fire, the recall, if it's going up, it goes back down. If it's going down, it goes back up because you don't want to go through the fire.
I think we're gonna have a nice, fun episode, special episode with your fire chief.
If we brought in somebody we didn't really know, we couldn't have this side banter.
That's it.
All right, so we got elevators. Tell us about these elevators.
All right, so elevators, they both have recalls. All right, these are good elevators. Right?
Good shit.
So
Smart.
these are good elevators, right? And so we're over here and we're hanging out. I'm gonna put Jason in this one over here. All right, so Jason's over here, and he goes in this elevator. It's got one cable. If that cable snaps, what happens to that elevator?
Bye-bye, Jason.
Ironically, you would think it would go down. It's counterweighted on the other side. It's going to go up. You're going to get ejected. You're going to fucking die going up from the impact.
Oh, like Willy Wonka style. You're just going to shoot out the roof
You
of
would
the
think
building.
it would go down. Not true.
That's not how Joe's scenario works.
Yeah, in this scenario,
You're still
goes
dead.
down. Yes. All right, perfect. Dead out
It's
of it.
not good for Jason if he only has one cable on his
Joe,
elevator.
I didn't tell you to bring up elevators. This was your thing.
I know. Definitely not using that example in the future.
All right, one cable on the elevator. Terrible
One cable on
idea.
this elevator, right? So if we have one cable on this elevator and this cable snaps, we're going down with it, and so is the money. This elevator over here has, it could be 100 cables, it could be 150 cables, right? It could be, right, like the S&P 500 is 500 companies built up, right? A mutual fund could be up to 150 companies in that one fund. So if one cable snaps, there's a bunch of other cables holding it together.
Mhm.
So it's not going to go down. It might like wiggle and shake a little bit. but it's gonna-
Might make you poop your pants a little.
Yeah, it's a backup
Like-
break. It's like a backup
Exactly.
system. You know, you
So
can't
that's
leave
the
it to one
difference, right?
cable.
Being like stock, the stock is the one cable where
A
this
single
elevator-
business or entity, right?
Correct, right? So if Apple goes out of business because everybody gets sick of them spying on us, for all these
Everyone
years,
buys Androids.
and they go get everybody's money in Apple stock is gone. But in the other one, this is built up of Amazon, Apple, Tesla, NVIDIA, Costco, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks,
Duncan. There you
FedEx,
go, Jason.
all these different
This
companies,
elevator.
That's
Sneaky
it.
big one.
right? There you go. Right? Sherwin-Williams, right? A big paint company, right? So all these companies that it's built up of. So if one company goes out, it's still there. So it's not, you're not going to, right? People invest in stocks because they want to get rich quick. They don't invest in stocks because they're afraid that they're going to lose their money. So when it comes to like retirement money and things of that nature, that's got a little bit more, again, not guaranteed, but you can kind of utilize history. Hey, you know what? I know if I invest in this type of companies, I should average between 7, 8, 9%.
Mhm.
I should average 10, 11%. I should average 3 or 4 or 5%. And it's just a matter of lining your goals with that and kind of going, that's really the main difference of what a stock in those type of funds are.
Essentially, so I want to ask a real question here. As I understand it, if you just rode the market itself from its inception, it's a 10% year over year growth, which means, if you want to call it that, whatever, like long term, every year
Long-term
average.
Every 7.2, you double, right?
So right. So there you go. So at 10% year over year growth, you're talking about doubling whatever you invested in there every 5 years, kind of. I mean, I'm not exactly. If you had literally just bet on the market itself. So if you bet on index funds, you've diversified and took on so much. You are essentially betting on the trajectory of money and of the market and of companies that are successful.
Correct. Right. And then you're kind of leaving it up to experts, right, that are going to be choosing, all right, which company is going to be in that fund, so you don't have to be the ones doing it, right? So where stocks, right, you got to pick your own stocks and follow those companies and things like that. But if you're going to invest in,
that's what I was going to ask. Put in layman terms, because I feel like a lot of dads think that if they come to you, you're going to day trade for them or something like that. So put into context like what you do with the money, or what a 401k does with the money versus, where they see people with big wins, big losses, going into financial debt, day trading type stuff because they don't understand it versus, more of the managed like platform style of investments.
Yeah, so there's so many different type of retirement type investment plans, like 401ks. Like most people think 401ks because that's just all what we hear and that's what they talk about, right? Right, there's 401ks, there's 403bs, there's 457s, right? There's deferred comp plans, there's thrift savings plans, there's SEP IRAs for business owners, there's simple IRAs for business owners, there's cash balance accounts, there's solo 401ks for high net worth or single self-employed owners. Then there's traditional IRAs for individuals. There's Roth IRAs, which is one of my favorites. And then there's just normal brokerage accounts that could be the same investments, just not categorized in a retirement plan, because retirement plans have certain tax things that are beneficial, whether it's tax deferred, which is every account that I just named, except the Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is tax-free money. So it grows tax-free. So when you pull the money out in the future, it's tax-free. We can get back to that later. But your question was like, in all those accounts, for example, let's say a 401k. Most 401ks, they're basically what they call our target funds. And the company, let's just say it's Transamerica, right? Transamerica doesn't actually handle the investments. They might put it through Voya.
Yeah.
Right. And Voya handles it, and they'll have a target fund, and they'll name it 2052 target fund. So what does that mean? You're planning on retiring in 2052. So they have a scale of electronic investments that it's going to kind of just go with based off if you were going to retire around 2052. It's generated to, on average, make anywhere between 7 and 8%. That's what the goal of that type of 401k is when it's target funds. Now, you could go in and change yours on your 401k. You go into your platform at work and stuff like that. And you can be like, no, I'm going to be more investment. I'm retiring in 2052, but I'm pretending I'm 2062. I'm like 20 again. Meanwhile, you're 30. Those are going to be more aggressive. 2028 is going to be very conservative. Why? It's 4 years from now. So the electronic target fund is going to move that into more conservative type funds that are maybe making 4, 5, 6%. So if there is a 2008 crash, you don't lose 40%, maybe you lose 5 or 10. You know. Now people can take money from that, and if they're allowed to, you can move it into different types of investments that have guarantees, so you can't lose any of it. It's just that's a matter of them having the proper planning and thought process in it. But completely different. Day trading is like you're staring at a screen, trading all day, every day, and trying to make money. And it's just like, hey, one day I made money, one day I lose money. One day I make money, one day I lose money. Now that's what the fund managers inside the companies kind of do, right? So like in a mutual fund, there's something called a mutual fund manager. Their job from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. is to watch that fund, see what those companies in that fund are doing. And if they see a report from Apple, I don't really like what Apple's doing, they're going to lower their percentage in Apple, put more in Amazon. Or all of a sudden Amazon announces they're going to start giving a higher dividend. So they go, you know what? I want my fund to get a higher dividend this next year. We're going to put more in Amazon. And they structure that, and they can change that from month to month. You know, and that's like,
Yeah. Is a 401k though?
If you max it out and you put away $23,000 a year, I mean, you'll retire pretty good if you start early enough. the challenge with a 401k, and one thing I always teach, if your company matches your 401k, a lot of companies they'll match. Let's say they give you 6%. Definitely
Nice.
put it away.
Nice.
Nice.
That's
right?
that's the
That's
only
sweet.
rule of thumb I know with a 401k is you should at least max out your company's max percentage. If
Because it's
you do
free money.
nothing else, that's been kind of my go-to is if they're going to match up to 6%, then I'll put a minimum of 6%.
Yeah, it's free money. It's getting a raise without asking them for one, JD, right? So
Yeah,
like
I
that,
think mine matches up to 7.
perfect. So you should
Wow.
at least be putting away 7, right? So you put away 7%, and then if somebody can do more than a 7, I recommend them now to go and open up their own Roth IRA, because the Roth IRA is tax free. So when you put that money into the Roth IRA, it's going to grow completely tax free. Because the difference of let's say a 401k in 30 years, let's just say you have $1 million in a 401k and $1 million in a Roth IRA. When you take $1 million out of the 401k, you saved a little bit in taxes along the way each year, but you didn't pay taxes on it yet because it is a tax deferred account. So when you take out, let's say you take out $100,000 of that 401k. Well, did you pay taxes? No. So what is Uncle Sam going to come to get?
Yeah.
The tax. You think taxes are going down or up in the future?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a pension, right? I don't know if you have a pension, military, fire department, your tax bracket is going to be even higher. So they're going to take more tax. Let's just say it's 30%. Well, you're losing 30,000 off 100. Not just the first year, you take it out, but every single year. Where if you have $1 million in the Roth IRA, you already paid taxes years ago. Paid a little bit, but you paid it already. All that growth was tax free. You take it $100,000, you're seeing all $100,000. So let's just say you take it out for another 30 years. 30 years times 30,000 is $900,000 in tax savings.
The Roth though that's not pre-tax, right?
Pre-tax, right? So you get paid, money goes into your bank account, then you invest. You pay taxes on it. So you're going to pay a little bit up front.
Right. Okay, so that's what makes it tax free on the back end.
Correct, because Uncle Sam already got there a little bit.
Yeah.
The growth
Okay.
is tax free. Yep. So sometimes, right? So what I always recommend: put away the match, get the free money, then put the Roth. Now you're only allowed to do right now. It's $7,000 a year if you're under the age of 50 into a Roth. They limit how much we can put into it.
Okay.
So it's $583 a month is what it comes out to. So if somebody's putting away their match in their 401k and then they go, hey, I want to put into my Roth, great, you max that out. Then you can go back to the 401k and put more away if you want. And then that you put more into your 401k, that might help lower your taxable income because that is pre-tax, right? So you want to utilize both when you can, but the first thing is if company matches, take the match, it's free money. And then you want to take tax-free growth. The other benefit of a Roth is you have flexibility. A lot of people don't know you can take the money that you've put into it at any time without penalty. Right? It's the only type of retirement plan where if you take the money, most of them you get penalized 10% plus tax.
Can you touch the gains?
Only for the first time purchase of a home. You can take
Okay.
up to $10,000 for the first time purchase of a home. Not sure if it's in every single state, but it is in most. The law has changed, year to year. Sometimes with that, and then certain medical expenses, death, or birth of a child, you could take.
Okay, so like life event type stuff.
Yeah, but it has to qualify. You got to have documentation, that type of stuff.
But let's say lifetime to date of my Roth, I've put in $10,000. I can. No matter what, I should be able to at least withdraw that $10,000 without any kind of penalty.
Correct. And if you want, you actually have up to 60 days to put that money back into it, and you've lost none of that compounding growth, which is something called the NAV, which is the share price that you put it at.
That's like a 0% like
Dude,
APR at that point. Like you take
I'm
it back
saying,
out.
like, what if you want to invest $10,000 in your home? You sell your home within that period.
60 days, yeah.
You basically got a free loan to build the value of your home right before sale.
If
That's
you got
wild.
that money in there.
I did not know
yeah.
you could do that.
That's cool.
Yeah, if it's in there, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so that's the Roth has so much flexibility because of it being after tax money, right? And you could invest, even if your spouse doesn't work, they could have a Roth IRA too, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, my wife doesn't work. One of the stipulations for a Roth IRA is you have to have earned income. So if they don't have earned income, they go, oh, I can't do a Roth. If you're married, your spouse can have a Roth. Like my wife doesn't work. She has a Roth IRA.
Wait, but
I got a question.
how's she earning earned income to put in?
She's not earning money, but I am. She's got a spouse.
Oh, so you're depositing on her behalf to that Roth.
And then you could.
Ah.
So off of that,
Are you subject? Sorry. Go ahead. Jason.
No, you finish your.
I was going to say, so are you subject to the same max percentage rule there, or there is no? Because I think you said it's 7% or something.
7% of
$7,000, right? You're thinking
How much?
Grand. So we do 14 grand.
Oh, $7,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do. So she gets her own $7,000. Interesting. Okay.
If you created an LLC, can then you employ your children and they could do $7,000 off of that?
So the LLC. It's a great question, right? So it comes into you need a good tax accountant as well, because what they have to do is handle payroll. And so like, for example, if you guys follow me on social media, I post sometimes like my kids, and let's just say my son, like he was playing with my iPad one time and he was just scribbling all over. And I made like a joke about it. This is what I envision people's stocks when they say I handle my investments myself, right? Well, now technically I used my son for marketing for my business. I can pay him, and it's crazy that this is legal, but it is 100% legal. I can pay him cash and just write it down in a journal. I think this year it's $13,500. I can take a tax deduction of $13,500, and then I can invest into an IRA for $7,000 a year.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You lost me.
No, the LLC. So so LLC means you're a company, and your kid is an employee of that company, and you're paying him as an employee of your company. So you tax deduct whatever you paid him, and then he is also an additional beneficiary of. Like you can put $7,000 into the Roth IRA, kind of like the spousal rule. So
it's a minor Roth IRA.
Yeah.
Does that affect child tax credit?
Probably.
Does that income count against? Isn't there a limit on?
No, so it's crazy that it's a legal thing, and that's where, because when you're again, I could literally be handing my son fake money. Like, now you can't be like, oh, my son sweeps the floor as in my hair studio as a 2-year-old, right? It's got to be like legit. Like, so most of the time parents are using it for like kids modeling, right?
So
things of that, marketing.
I use my kids for marketing all the time.
Well, so that's what I'm getting at, right? Like Jen is forever taking photos of Emerson. 95% of them go on her site. And rather than just keeping her business money in her account, she usually tries to get to a break-even point where she's investing most of what she's earning back into her company via equipment upgrades and such. But she could essentially use that extra in the account, and instead of just buying gear to kind of offset the income, she could pay Emerson.
She could pay Emerson. She could do a lot of stuff, and that'll reduce her taxable income.
That's wild. I'm gonna have to look into that. That's insane.
Yeah.
And if you want, so my thought, and I wanted to ask you, Joe. So like, if you want to do that from a perspective of setting your kids up, if you actually do take that $13,000, $13,500, and now it's there, you're paying them that money. So you take that money and you create accounts for them that are growing year over year growth, and investing that as savings for them.
Yeah.
That that money, if you call it $13,500 per year for 18 years, they'll be like a fucking millionaire by the time you send them off into the world.
Yeah. Well, you can't invest in 13.5 because they only max allowed 7 in the IRA. But you could take the other portion of it, 6.5, and put it into like an UTMA or an UGMA, right? That's a child account. UTMA stands for Uniform Transfers Minor Account,
Mhm.
or UGMA, Uniform Gifts Minors Account.
Yeah.
It goes in their account. There's no like tax deduction or anything like that on there where it would be there, but it does grow at the when they take it out in the future. It's taxed at the child's rate, but it's not a retirement account, so they can use it at 20
Yeah.
for a car. They could use it for a house at 30. You don't have to touch it, right? But the challenge with the UGMA and UTMA, and this is what most parents get, is when, depending on what state you're in, either 18 or 21, it becomes the child's control. So if my kid's a jackass, and then all of a sudden he's getting handed money, they can go
Blows
do
it
whatever
all
they
on sports cars. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have no say. So what do most parents do? Well, do I have to tell my kids? You don't have to tell them anything. When they're 25, you go, oh, by the way, here's 30 grand. I set up a $25 investment for you when you were born, and now they're 25 years old and they got all this money. They can use it for whatever they want. And taxed at the kid's tax rate, not at the parent's income, which is the benefit of it. Right? So 10 or 12% as opposed to,
So if they're not working at all, it's taxed at pretty much the lowest bracket.
Lowest bracket, correct.
Wow.
Yep.
So, because we say my wife and I, we have $10,000 we want to invest in Jasper. What's, obviously can't do anything with a Roth, contribution or anything like that for him at this point. What would be the best way to set him something, set him up something that way when he's older, whether he wants to use it to help get his first car. Now, obviously, it's not going to be a retirement fund, so it's like you said, at any point once he turns either 18 or 21, he'd be able to access those funds. He could use it to go to trade school, college, whatever he decides, or he could just leave it there and it continues to grow, or would it then have to transfer into a different type of account since he's no longer a child or something like that? But
you do 4 different accounts. You could do one is called the 529, which is probably the most popular. Then the next one is like the UGMA that I talked about. There's another one called the Coverdell Education Savings Account. That's probably the least popular. Similar to the 529, but there's differences to it. And then there's just a normal brokerage account. All of them have benefits. I have, for my kids, I have a Coverdell and I have an UGMA. So the Coverdell, the max is $2,000 a year. It's limited, $167 a month is what you can do. You can do lump sum monthly; it doesn't really matter. It grows state and federal tax free. Okay, so that money goes in. There's no tax deduction on it from the parent's income or anything like that. But you can take that and invest basically in almost any type of investment that you want: ETF, stocks, mutual funds, all those type of stuff. So that's a Coverdell. It can be used for elementary school, pencils, iPads, school uniforms for private school, homeschool, right? Anything for the benefit of the child's education, up all the way up to college, tuition, anything. The 529 is the most popular. It used to suck. It got a lot better because it used to be strictly tuition for college. And then they opened it up to trade schools and things like that. Similar to this, Coverdell could be used for trade schools and things like that too. Coverdell has more flexibility, a little bit more similar to a Roth in the flexible aspects of it. 529, the nice thing that they changed in 2024 is, so again, you can use it for tuition, school, trade schools, anything like that. You could transfer them. If your oldest child doesn't use it, you could transfer it to your youngest child. With the 529, you could actually transfer it to yourself or as a parent, a spouse, if you want to go back to school. And the 529 is tax deductible from the parent. I believe now you can technically put away, I think it's $85,000 for a 5-year period. So you could put it all in at once, or you could put it over a 5-year period. That's the max you could do on the 529. But the nice benefit too is if your kid does not use it all for college, now you're allowed to transfer it and put it into a Roth IRA for them. That was a big roll.
Is there a waiting period? Is there an age where that kicks in? Or if they just decide at 20 they're not going to use it?
So it has to be 15 years in. has to be open for 15
Since
years.
the open date? Okay.
Yep, since the open date, and then they can only roll $35,000 of it into the IRA, but they still can't go over the max limit for that year. So it's not like they can do 7,000 because they were working and then roll some of that money to make it 14,000. If they max it out, so they can't do it for that year, right? So if they're kind of taking advantage of both, that it won't work in that scenario.
Got it.
The UTMA and UGMA is, again, nothing for school. The 529 is federal and state tax free too. The challenge with the 529 is every state has different investments that you can invest in. Some are better, some are not. Some don't make as high interest rate as the covered L's and things, which is why I chose the covered L over the 529. I wanted higher interest. I also set it up 2021 when my son was born, which was before that Roth rule. The UTMA and UGMA, right, could be used for anything, right? Because the 529 covered L has to be used for education. If not, it could be penalized for that. Taxes, 10%. So it's like if you use the 529 to buy a car and you don't have proof that it was used for school, they'll get you. If somebody's, the UGMA and UTMA is for anything, whatever you want.
So,
And then it's just
so these four investments you were just talking about, I think traditionally people are just used to, I want to invest in my retirement. Okay, so they set up their 401k through work and shit just happens, right? The money comes out of your check, it goes to where it needs to go. These type of accounts for the savings you were just talking about I don't think that's similar, right? That's where I would need to.
Coming out of your bank account.
Okay, so you'd be making deposits on your own behalf to it,
yes,
rather than an automated process, so to speak.
Yeah, some jobs like you could set up like sometimes I'll do like financial workshops for companies, and like if we want to set up like a payroll deduction plan from the company, it's no expense to the employer, but it'll come directly out of that paycheck already, and it kind of like the employer's like they kind of look like, hey, cool, I'm giving to my clients.
And you put it where it needs to go, right?
Yeah, I put it in where it needs to go. Like,
so that's like a weird roundabout way of hiring your company, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just and it makes the employer look good, right? Because I can't get in a retirement plan, but the employer.
Well, nobody tells you about this kind of shit. I mean, I can't tell you how many like HR intros I've been through. Yeah. And it's all 401k, and after that spiel, that's all you hear about as far as your investments. It's like we were talking last episode about we were actually talking about the trades and how it's kind of a disservice to kids these days that they don't talk about the value in the trades and stuff. It's the same way with investments for adults, right? Like this is not common knowledge for everyone. You're not, unless you go and research it or talk to someone like you, Joe. You may not stumble upon it, right?
Yeah.
Some people don't even know the proper search terms. I mean,
yeah.
Can I piggyback? Yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway. How about that? Cash me outside. I think a good takeoff on that point is like a question that we're not addressing, which, I think if you have a lot of people that listen to the show, or even a little bit of people listen to the show, you're gonna have people in a position like most of the people on the show that are investing in a certain way based on, okay, I have this money, what's the best way to use this money? I do want to ask a question at some point about what happens if you come into a large sum of money. But more important, Joe, what do you focus on when you do have debt? Do you focus on paying off the debt or saving for retirement? Like, you're young, you might have equity in your house, you might have the prospect of, like, you still have credit, even though you have credit card debt. What do you focus on, and how do you like pay off higher interest debt faster? Both those things, I guess.
Yeah, no, great question. Somebody has high interest debt, I always want them to pay it off. Because your 28% interest credit card, you're not making that in your investments. I don't care how good your financial advisor is. They can promise you the world. They're not making it 28% year over year. They're absolutely lying if they are. 100%. Now,
He said it.
Unless you got Bernie Madoff or, I don't know, whatever. But that's just not happening. Paying off your debt is two principles you have to look at. Is one is called debt stacking. The simple thing where you take your credit cards, your debts. It's not always paying off the highest interest first. Sometimes it's targeting one specific card or debt to knock that out first. It could be the smallest one, and you get out of that one faster, which now saves you on interest. And now you take that money you were paying towards that card and stack it to the next one. Just Google debt stacking or avalanche or snowballing for debt. It's very simple. YouTube has tons of videos on it. It's a very simple process. You could write it out on pen and paper. Super simple. General rule of thumb, if somebody has an interest rate, if it's over 7%, I want them paying off their debt before I want them investing more. If it's a debt under 7%, they can make money while being in debt. And I'll give you a scenario.
Any kind of debt we're talking, not just like we could be talking auto loan, we could be talking credit cards.
Exactly. Again, I'll give you an example, right? So I have a car. I have a Subaru. I only buy cars when it's at 0% interest rate, right? Jason, we talked about this in the past, right? A Subaru is because I get, my sister-in-law gets a huge discount with my brother-in-law gets a huge discount with Subarus. We got 0% interest. It's not really debt, but let's just say it was 2%. Well, even if it was 2%, I'm not paying off my car first if I can make 10% in my investments because I'm going to be in debt making 8%, 10% minus 2. My house, my mortgage, it's 3.3 interest rate. I'm never paying that off. Why would I pay that off early? I've already paid most of the interest because they atomized the interest right on a mortgage. I'm paying most of it now, but it's at 3.3%. If I'm going to make 10% of my investment, I'm getting a tax credit on my house. I'm paying a 3% interest rate, and I'm making money on my money. Right? That's what like real estate developers do, right? They always carry mortgages. Why? Because they're leveraging the bank's money. I'll borrow at 3% knowing I can make 10, 11, 12.
Right. Even if they have $250,000 to buy whatever, they'd rather invest it and take the $250,000 loan. I follow you. Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Leveraging money. So it's the same thing. But you can just do it on a smaller scale. If my car loan is small, don't take the extra $200 and pay off the car fast. Take the extra $200 and put it in your Roth IRA, or tax-free money, while still getting a tax deduction if you got a business, right? Or just if it's your house, getting a tax credit and just paying a small interest to them. You're utilizing their money.
Now, what about if it's someone who's working on rebuilding credit? Does that flip-flop it to where you would focus on the loan over investments?
If they're trying to build up credit, it's a matter of you don't want to close out the accounts. Right? That's where people stuck into, and that's a whole societal question. I can get into theories of why they want us in debt, right? They want you to build up credit cards and use credit cards, so they know most people will forget to pay them and not pay them, and then go into more debt and make money, which is the only way to build credit is by doing that. If somebody's got credit card debt, I want them to kind of follow the debt stack.
Okay.
It's a systematic approach, and it's like I said before, money's emotional. Every time you pay off a card, it's like a little win. Makes you feel good, and if it makes you feel good, you'll probably do better at work, probably be a better husband, probably be a better father, right? And it kind of comes down to all those things, and it's because
that can be very crippling.
You're a terrible dad. What the hell's the point? Right? And all that stuff. So I try to put it in a systematic plan. Now, if it's going to come down to them, hey, I'll start investing after I'm out of debt. What I tell them to do is, hey, Nick, take $25 a month and just start investing 25, because that $25 a month is not going to get you out of debt really soon. Right. But it's starting to have it, because this is what most people don't do. Start. So if they don't start that $25 a month investment, and I'll start in 5 years once I'm out of debt. Then they get out of debt and they go, oh my God, I got extra money. Let me go buy a boat. But if they have the 25 month going, once they have that habit, it's created. So when they're out of debt, they bump the 25 up to 300 or 500 or more. So it's kind of just creating that habit for them. But the general rule of thumb, if If the debt is over 7%, pay the debt off higher first before you're investing. If it's under 7%, you can keep the debt and invest. I guess you could call it the rule of 7. Think of it that way.
I had the rule of 72 to remember now, and the rule of 7.
So Joe, before, and I don't know where we're at for time, but first question, and then a follow up, which was like the coming into a sum of money. Like what's Joe do if he's got a bunch of money, and how does he like invest it out of the blue? But so what you're saying is the 7% is a comfortable rate. If I take a personal loan from a bank to pay off a credit card debt, you might get I don't know what a personal loan from a bank, it might be 7%. It might be, probably a little higher than that, but that seems like if I have the credit to get a personal loan, I should just pay off a credit card debt with that and then try to chip away at that, because now my interest is in my favor.
Right. Well, that's why like real estate developers and house flippers and people that do that type of investing. Right. What they're doing is they get a house, they make money on the house, they get it appraised, they take a home equity loan on the house. A lot of time they pull the equity out. Let's say the home equity loan is 5%. Well, they're at 5%. They're now taking that money they made on a profit on home and investing it elsewhere. Usually they take it and invest it back into a home, but they can do whatever they want with it. Let's just say all of a sudden the market crashed and somebody just took out $200,000 out of the house. They get $200,000, put it into a stock, and potentially double it real quick. Right? But that's essentially what they're doing, right? And the banks, right, and mortgage companies, why they give us lower interest rate is because they got so much freaking money it doesn't matter. They're happy getting 3% on $1 million. They don't need to get 10%. They don't need to get 12%. They're getting 3% all over, and then their credit card charges 28%. They give us because they're already getting money. Right? They're already getting money. So they're not going to get the 10% on the mortgage anymore. But if they got 3% of every house in the United States of America, that's why they have a lot of money.
Okay.
Right.
For first-time investors, do you suggest gold or silver?
First-time investors?
Yeah. Somebody, because so I have a very limited understanding of how gold works. My grandpa, he was very invested in gold and silver. He always said, typically when the stock market is at its best, that's when it's probably the most appropriate time to buy gold or silver, because the value tends to decrease when the stocks are relatively high. However, if the stock market crashes, then all of a sudden that's when your gold and silver shoots up.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't know, because I've also heard about Roths and Roth IRAs where you can put gold and silver, or use your Roth IRA to get gold or silver. I'm trying to figure out so I've thought about gold and silver, because it's something that doesn't really get affected by interest rates per se. You know what I'm saying? So what's your suggestion to, say, a first-time investor or somebody who's maybe wanting to be a little bit more conservative in investing? Is gold and silver a good option?
It's not pixie dust. It's not pixie dust. Land. You buy dirt.
Debatable.
You buy dirt. You buy gold. You buy silver. That's a real thing. That's not some paper rectangle that Joe Schmo fucking made based on nothing. You know what I'm saying? Go on.
It's the challenge with this is, first, with gold and silver, do you mean literally you're taking gold bars and throwing them in your basement, or do you mean you're investing in, right? Because you could invest in companies that focus their investments on gold and silver. You could invest in funds that have gold and silver and precious metals. Or do you talk about like you're literally stacking gold bars like we're the San Francisco 49ers, right? and we're filling our safes and stuff.
They're not stacking shit this year.
Right?
Definitely not a Super Bowl ring.
Well, my grandfather did a little bit of both. Obviously, he had a safe filled with all kinds of wild shit, but he also did, he did have some investment accounts in gold and silver.
Yeah,
Just trying to see what the best recommendation is.
I'm a believer of diversification, right? Gold is a physical asset, right? That's a great thing to have, right? Your mutual fund account, right? To Jason, this will make him feel good.
Jason's looking like he's going to build a gold sound booth where he is, the way he's looking around.
It's right. When it's invested, right, your index funds there, it's floating money out in the abyss, right? Until you decide to take it and cash it, right? Now, one thing I always say is, right, people are like, oh, well, if the world crashes, and, it's usually election time and things like this, people are like, oh, well, the world crashes, I want to make sure I have gold and silver. And what I always say is, hey, that sounds great, but let me ask you, if the world crashes and what you think in every company, let's just use the S&P 500, because that's like the standard investment that most people know. If every single one of those 500 companies in the United States went out of business the same day, I am not reaching for my gold bar to put in my pocket. You're reaching for food, water, and guns. That's what matters at that point, right? So that safe investment when the 500 companies go out of business is not a safe investment. What are you going to, at that point, what are you doing with that gold bar? You're going to find somebody to buy it from you when there's an apocalypse, right? But a lot of times that's when people are like, oh, well, if this ever happens, that's why they talk about investing in gold and silver. Now, is it a bad investment? No. Is it going to go up and down? Yes. Is it going to grow over time? Right? Just like anything. Is it more conservative? Yeah. It is a physical, tangible asset in that case. But most people then that are investing and want gold and silver in that case, that's usually what they're saying. Hey, I want to make sure that if the world goes into this, I have that. It's great. But the other challenge with having the physical assets is you got to store it. Mm-hmm. You got to get insurance on it. You got to have safe. So there's other costs that come to those things too, of having those things, which affects your return.
It's almost like, and bear with me, it's almost like money is more of an idea than a physical attribute, because really, who cares about your gold and your diamonds and your fucking mink coats and Ferraris? And if the top 500 companies in the world no longer mean anything, that means there is no confidence in the system, and that means that it's go time. And again, it's guns and water and fucking food,
which is kind of right. I don't know how big everybody and how our dads and listeners are into crypto, but that was kind of the Bitcoin person that created it. That was kind of part of his thing, is taking it, centralized the money and taking it away from the banks and the people and creating something that always has a value. Now, does the US dollar and the euro and stuff have value? Of course it does. But there are many that believe that down the road it might not. And,
some believe it's pixie dust.
Some do believe it.
I don't know anybody like that though.
Yeah,
I've always been leery of crypto. I like tangible assets.
Yeah, and most people do. Crypto is slowly getting into
NFTs are becoming huge though.
Yeah, they are. The challenge with NFTs, I'm not going to get into all that.
You got to buy into it. Is the thing.
Mm.
Well,
it's only as valuable as the people that buy into it.
Well, that's what it is, right? It could be like, hey, I'm going to say this pen is worth $1 million, and if I convince people it's $1 million, it'll be worth $1 million because people are convinced it is.
Yeah. If there's an ass in that seat that thinks it's worth $1 million, then that's its value.
It's like art. Sometimes you see paintings, right? How the hell does that sell for that amount of money? Because somebody wants it.
Yeah.
Or even baseball cards. It's only worth something to those that are in collecting.
Yeah. We need to wrap it up, but I was going to freaking ask you that question because I've always been into collecting sports cards. My son recently got into it, and I've seen a lot of larger investors that are known for their really sound financial decisions that are turning to things like baseball cards for an investment source. And I'm curious, I know in your line of work, you're like, fucking baseball cards probably, but I was just curious your thoughts just as Joe, the everyday Joe, not Joe with your company hat on, what you thought of that.
Sounds like a Wonder Flake rectangle to me. I mean, fucking sparkle powder. Pop. It's an idea. It's fucking bullshit. It's an idea.
Yeah.
It's an money's
I mean,
an
listen,
idea.
I'm not going to drop enough money on a card to consider it an investment, but there are people out there that's their career and their life worth and wealth is all in sports cards.
You know the guy with the Mickey Mantle card that has a fucking briefcase and a bodyguard? You ever seen that guy?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys.
He's got a Mickey Mantle card that's worth like fucking $10 million. And he'll go to shows and he's got like a special case and a bodyguard. Fucking piece of paper, man. It's like,
but somebody believes that is the value of that.
Yeah, and somebody has someone's got a job on Long Island where he thinks that these green paper rectangles are actually worth millions and billions of dollars.
Ask for a receipt, man. That's all you need.
Yeah,
but hold on. So I got
same shit.
We do kind of have to wrap it up, Joe. I think we're gonna have to do a second episode and do a deeper dive because I feel like you're just a pool of knowledge that's super helpful, and I'm sure there's some stuff we didn't get to.
I'm gonna pick your brain later.
I forgot what my first question was gonna be now for closing statements. My baseball card thing threw me off. Oh, that's what I was gonna ask. So let's say I'm that dad out there that maybe I think you're not worth what you may want, Joe, or the cost of it. Or I'm like, why the hell would I want somebody else to do this? What kind of what does a service like yours cost typically? And is that like a monthly ongoing expense?
Every advisor, and depends on titles and things like that, could be different, right? CFPs are what's called certified financial planners. They could be fee based, right? Hey, you sit with me. We have an hour conversation, kind of like a lawyer, right? They might charge by the hour. We meet for an hour. They could charge $300, $500, right? Whatever they kind of want in that asset. They might meet twice a year, once a year, whatever, or as the client chooses, right? Things of that nature. Then there's other ones that, right, you can do. Like, hey, I'm not going to recommend any specific companies or products. I'm just going to kind of give you a generic thing. And it might be, hey, it's $150, right? Or $200, something like that.
It's like a consultation to get me on track doing something.
Correct. Then there's other ones right now. Most investments, right, come with like residuals, right? So it's, there might be, hey, you're putting in monthly and there's a small sales charge that goes to the advisor, the investment company, and the mutual fund manager or the investment manager that's handling the actual fund, right? And there's a sales charge that goes into that. That could be, some companies they used to charge crazy amounts. It used to be like 9%, right? So 9% to every dollar that went in. One time, it's not like, ongoing in that case, but let's say, every fund is different. It could be 1%, it could be 5%. Could be 3%, depending. Usually the more aggressive the fund, because it's longer term, the higher the fee up front, but it's one time and then it's not again. So you could call the advisor 100 times a year and you're not paying anything extra, right? You could have some on other stuff. So sometimes that's a value, right? Then there's managed money, right? Where it's, usually more portfolio based. You got to have a certain amount of money to invest into that. And it could be anywhere from like 1% to 2% of the portfolio. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's more like, let's say, for example, Bill Gates or somebody that's got billions, right? Well, that portfolio manager is sitting very well If he's even, he's probably not getting 1% because usually the more money that's in it, the lower the fee.
Right.
And it can reduce down to zero if, in some cases as well. And they're paid through what's called like 12B1 fees and stuff. It's not like a charge in that case. And then there's other products sometimes and things that a client doesn't pay anything, but the company they place business with pays.
Okay.
So there's a few different scenarios in that case. Depends on if they're advisory or if they're brokerage. If they're both, they can do both. Like I do both. So I can do both aspects of it.
Okay.
Because sometimes it matters on the client. Sometimes they'll have a portfolio that they want managed and they want daily updates.
Right.
And
A little more needy than the average guy.
And then there's ones that, listen, here's some money. I'm investing $500 a month. I don't need to talk to you for 35.
Yeah, I trust you to do your thing and whatever.
So it's kind of like they're looking at the wait times. I can get a 4-day hopper to go to Joeyland, or I can buy the season pass, and and it just depends on the wait times on the Peter Pan ride when I get there.
I didn't know actually where you were going.
I don't think I understood a word you just said.
Oh God, fired.
I'm not sure either if I got that one. But yes, it could vary based on the type of event.
There are multiple options to suit multiple needs, I think is what you're getting at, and varying levels of service, it sounds like.
Well, because listen, sometimes it could be like Jason brought up, maybe somebody gets an inheritance, they got a bunch of money. Well, what they're going to do with that money is going to be different than the person putting away $50 a month.
And so they also don't have to pay you for any reoccurring type deposits to account. They could just pay you to say, hey, where the hell do I put this money? Just, I want to know where to put it. Can you tell me that?
Yeah, that's like a fee based.
Right.
It's a 1-day pass to Joeyland.
I follow you now. I got you.
Yeah. Exactly.
You don't need the park hopper. You don't need to go.
What about the speed? Do I get the speed pass or no?
Maybe. Speed or for comfort? You got to ask Joe that question. I don't know.
You get the handicap ticket,
Gatorland.
sticker, and you skip the line. That's it.
Just where I thought I was fixing to learn how to translate Jason.
No.
Translate Jason.
Good
Caught you
fucking
off
luck.
guard again.
Good fucking luck. AI can't even translate Jason. All right, you could put like the recording device on. Say, hey, I want you to translate what Jason just said.
You're on your own, guys.
They're gonna tell you to fuck off. And that's AI.
We don't speak Jason. Last question I always ask: give me a couple of resources if you have any off the top of your head that somebody can go to if they're just kind of curious of how to dip their toes into investing or finding someone like yourself, Joe.
I mean, location is a factor for people. I know small towns don't have certain advisors and people that are local, but in today's world,
what about like a literature resource that might help?
It's crazy as what I found. Chat GPT is pretty freaking good.
Yeah. If you give it a scenario and it'll.
If it's now, you got to know the questions to ask and things like that. But if you ask, hey, what's the benefit of a stock, right? What's the downfall of this, right? What are some other options besides a stock to invest? It gives you some pretty good things, and that's why I like a lot of advisors and stuff like that. They talk about a lot of it is electronic type stuff now, right? It's like 20 years ago, they were, you couldn't invest unless you had a person, right? You needed a specific advisor with a license to do so. Now you can download an app, pick an index fund, hop on there, not look at it for 30 years, and you'll make money. I mean, it really is that simple. Like, it really is that simple. The thing is, sometimes you need the person to push you to do it, right? Like, go freaking do it.
That's Joe the ball buster,
right? That's it. Like, just get it done, and it's going to be better than if you didn't do it. And
all right. Well, that was an easy answer. Last question. I know you asked for a lot of financial information from people, obviously, to help them make sound decisions. Do you have any advice for someone who may feel like be embarrassed by their finances or think that they're, don't have the right sum of money to invest? Do you have any advice to kind of get them over that hump?
There's always somebody in a worse position than you.
Right now.
Always. I've got clients that are making $300,000 a year plus, living in upstate New York with a small mortgage, and they were half their business was paid cash at $300,000, but really more than $300,000, and they had no money to then in. Did 2 months of homework, found out where he was spending money, and we figured out how to quickly save $20,000 right in 2 months.
Disneyland.
Was it Pornhub?
No,
OnlyFans.
that one wasn't on the budget sheet, so I don't think it went there. What's crazy is he was making good money. He just really he was just so busy between his full-time job and his side business that he never really sat down and realized what he was doing with his money. And after he did homework for 2 months, he had an extra $20,000 cash sitting in his safe. He had extra money here, and now he got married.
I had $20,000 just sitting around. I pseudo forgot about.
Yeah, and
shit,
blew it up your nose.
He does very well for himself, and then his wife now does very well for themselves, and they're great investors. Maxing out their accounts and doing what they can, and they'll be very well off. But people will always be in a worse situation. So if somebody's got debt, I can give them a story of somebody that was in worse debt. It's kind of like, I don't know, let's say an alcoholic, right? You got to admit you have a problem, and then that's the first step. It's the same thing with money. You just got to face it. You just got to sit down, do it. Is it sometimes embarrassing? Yeah, but we see it all the time. I mean, listen, there's doctors that specialize in hemorrhoids. I mean, it's not embarrassing to the doctor anymore. It might be embarrassing to the patient, but there's doctors that's what they do every single day of their life. They see it all day, every day. It's not new to them, so don't be embarrassed with that. That's
nice.
what I kind of think.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
I'm gonna be thinking about fucking hemorrhoids all night.
No, right now, wait.
Well, I think
What is old doctor?
Americans have them.
Damn it, Joe. All right. Anybody have a last question before I close this out? You look like you're thinking hard, Jason.
Well, I mean,
let's
get to the point of the episode. This is really an intervention for Joe. You've been falling for tall tales and living with, believing in fantasies for long enough. We need you to, come out into the real world, admit that money is fake and it's just like a pixie dust. We're your friends, Joe. This is a safe place. We're trying to get you off.
This is the intervention.
I did say the
What
first
you're trying to
step
tell
is
you
Dr.
is
Phil gonna
The
come
first
out from
step,
behind
you
the
said it
curtain or some
yourself,
shit?
Joe. The first step is admitting you have a problem. I mean, so if you're ready, we're gonna help you through this, Joe.
I appreciate that. That's what friends are for. And
Moral support.
Quick, Joe. What do you? First thing you do? Where can you invest the most amount of money, without, other than just sticking under your mattress? What's the largest amount? Other than that 529, there was $85,000.
I mean, just
If you just want to stockpile money,
How much can you put in a brokerage account? Anything? Unlimited? I could take $1 million, put it in a brokerage account right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
done.
But I can't take it out. If a Roth, I could take it back out.
a normal brokerage account that is not in a retirement plan, you can take out whenever you want.
Okay.
The challenge is, right, and sometimes the way if it grows, it gets taxed because it's not in a retirement account, right? The purpose of a retirement account is that it's either tax deferred or tax free.
Only tax when it's fully realized, though, right? So once you withdraw it. Yeah.
Yeah, so capital gains and dividends are taxed differently and things like that. If you lose money, stuff like that. But yeah, you take that money out, you could literally put it in. But the challenge is if you put in $1 million, now $1 million where there'd be no sales charge. Most companies that I know, that's some. But if you put in $1 million and you paid, let's say you put in $100,000, you pay a sales charge of 3%, which is $3,000, for example. But you don't want to take that money out tomorrow. Then you just paid $3,000 for no freaking reason. So that's where it comes in. And what is the short-term goals, long-term goals? What's the time frame on it? How quick are the dividends going to pay you back that $3,000 to make it worthwhile? But if you got $1 million, yes, you can throw it in a brokerage account. You can put it in managed money. It does not have to be. It's called non-qualified. Qualified means in a retirement account. Non-qualified means not a retirement account. You'll get taxed on the growth, but you take it out whenever you need to.
Okay.
Boom.
If you got $1 million laying around, let me know.
Yeah. Can I borrow some?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, you got more? You got more?
I got more than $1 million. No. got more than $1 million.
No.
Stupid fucking cool.
We'll have to do another episode because I think I don't even know if I would call this the tip of the iceberg at this point. I know
Very
this
important.
is
Very important.
there's very
topic.
many a wormhole you can go down in different paths. I know it's a very it's you said it's not confusing, Joe, but obviously your head knows all this stuff, and so
Well,
we'll have to do another episode.
Right. And this is why it's not confusing. If you have debt, Google debt stack. If you have money, Google the rule of 72. You learn that, you're ahead of 95% of people. Then when it comes down to the ticker tax stuff is the taxes and what's going to grow and my kids and this and that, what's best. That's where that stuff gets confusing. But the simplicity of finance, this is it. Pay off your debts if they're high interest rate. Invest because the earlier you start, the more money you'll have. So you can put in less money longer term than if you put in more money on a short term, and you'll have more. Right? You put in $50 for your kid at 1 year old. When they're 60, they're going to have a crap ton more than you if you started at 30, even if you put in $500 a month.
Yeah.
Because time is the factor there. Right? So if that's the case, well, that's why you want to start as soon as possible when we can, because time is our biggest thing.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Special episode 3. Thank you, Joe, for sharing your knowledge with us. And like I said, I think we could totally easily pull off another episode of this, if not more. So again, appreciate you letting us pick your brain on this stuff. I'm sure the dads out there will appreciate it. I learned a lot in just this hour-long episode. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll put a link to Joe's business when we release the video so everyone can check him out if you're needing some of his financial services. This episode will be after Christmas, so Happy New Year's, guys. If you missed the Christmas episode, well, we talked a little bit about the holidays, but check that out. But thanks again for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe, check us out on the Facebook group. You can pick Joe's brain there too, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Never stop believing, Joe. Never stop believing.